So hi everybody and welcome back to the C++ tutorials for absolute beginners. This is video 215 and in this video I want to talk about software bugs. In my last video we stopped at the step 10 and I will continue here, but before I continue, like I said, we have to understand what a software bug is. And to understand what a software bug is, you can go to Wikipedia and there is this page here. I will link it in the description and you should read this through. And the question is why we have to understand what a software bug is, because when we code here, in my example, there are two kinds of errors. One is a compiler error and one is a software bug. And many beginners and starters, let's say, they don't really know the real difference about a compiler error and a software bug. And on the internet, you have this funny stories on YouTube where they show a clip where a software developer is annoyed, for example, about compiler errors. And actually, in the real world, experienced programmers are not annoyed about compiler errors, and the reason for that is they are more happy about compiler errors, and we have to understand why is that so. Many starters are annoyed about compiler errors because they learn to code, they have many compiler errors, but if you get better and better, you are happy about compiler errors, but on the other side, you are really mad about software bugs. And this is the reason why I want to talk a little bit more in depth about it. And like I said, you should read to understand what a software bug is this through. I will not go through this because this is again a theoretical topic and that would take too much time. But in short, let me say so, when you go through here, you will realize a software bug is also an error, but the difference is the compiler is not helping you. That's more or less the difference about a compiler error, which means the compiler is helping you, the developer, and indicating, hey, software developer, you have here a problem. You made here a problem. Correct this. And that's why experienced programmers are happy when they have a compiler error, because most time a compiler indicates, okay, there is an error and I have just to find it. Okay, there are different kind of compiler errors because there are some compiler errors which is very simple. For example, if I just forget here the semicolon, you can see the compiler is already complaining here before I start compiling that here is something wrong. This is not even the compiler, this is the IDE is complaining, because normally I would start here the compiler, and now you can see the compiler reacts here with this error message. This is a very easy compiler error, but there are some compiler errors which are not so easy, which are compilers where it is chaining. Chaining means it happens here. For example, here you see here an error. Let me make this one again. But the cause of this error was not near it. For example, you can see the cause of this error here, this indication was that I forgot here a semicolon. But there are compiler errors which shows you here is an error and the cause was in a whole different file or whole different place, which is not correlated to this whole file here perhaps. And this kind of compiler errors are more difficult, but still experienced programmers still love this compiler errors because they know the software got a problem and you can fix it, you can trace it and fix it. That's the good thing about compiler errors. And when we go back to our topic bug, this is bad because a software bug, like I said, it is not indicating that there is an error. And in my last video, I showed you one of my little software bug here in my sort linked list, and that was this if you remember this comparison operator here. You can see I compared here the first one with the second one, and let me Let me open fast this picture here again. You can see I compared here the first one with the second one, and this is okay. It is no compiler error because the syntax is right, but the problem is I used here a greater sign, and this, when we watch this picture, it is right, because this picture, how I pictured it here to draw it here, that it is right, because I said, okay, I have here a big number, and when I compare these two nodes, I want switch this if the first one is bigger, and you can see that was absolute perfect. There is no error, but in real, this one is would be a software bug, but a very easy software bug. And why is this a software bug? Because when I go back to my exercise, the highest score should be on top, and my sort algorithms, which is here is the linked list, and then I have again a sort algorithms for this linked list. It is showing the highest number is showing at the bottom, and that's wrong. So you can see this would be a very simple detectable software bug, because you just compare the task, what you want to achieve, with the output, what you have done. But there are more difficult software bugs. Software bugs means the code is right, the compiler is not helping you, the logic which you imply must be correct. And yeah, that can cause big problems. When you read here this Wikipedia site, you can see there are software bugs who caused people to die. There are software bugs who caused a rocket to explode and wasted over 500 million or 200 or 500 million dollar just because one little bug. And important is that you understand software bug means they tested this code, they checked this code in correctness, and when the developer developed this code, it was okay. So, and then he released it, and then a software bug occurred. And this is the worst case, because sometimes you can't test all cases. There are software bugs which you have no chance to fix it when it's related, for example, for hardware. And this is also a famous example here on the Wikipedia. That was this little picture. You can see there is a moth report, and that was a software bug. There was a moth in the hardware of a computer, right? And that caused a different value than the normal expected. So the problem was the code which they wrote was perfect, and it was all perfect. The code was, there was no much errors and could not cause a big problem. But because of this hardware error, all the values which they expected was not correct, and yeah, that caused a problem. And you can read this here a little bit more through. Important is that you understand this, and the question is now why I'm telling you that. Why I'm telling you that we have to understand the difference about compiler error and software bug. First of all, I tell you this because my code here, which I am writing, it's a prototype, and prototypes have most time software bugs. Like I said, here I showed you my software bug here on this one, the first one. I realized this in a later step. That's why I still keep the software bug here. You can see that was step 4. And at this point, I didn't realize that it is wrong. The code is right. I followed the picture which I drew. It's right. But the end result was wrong when I compared it later to my task. All right, and something like that you have to check with your knowledge, which means you need a lot of theory. And theory means this is not that what we cover here in this practical video, which you have to cover on your own, but in future, when you get better and better, the only chance to find the software bugs is you have also a very good knowledge about theory, because if you don't have this, that can be very hard. Like I said, software bugs are more logical errors than syntax errors. The syntax errors, the compiler will point out a syntax error, and That's why I said at the beginning, experienced programmers are happy about compiler errors, because they say, okay, there is a compiler error, there's a syntax error, I can trace it, I can find it. But they hate software bugs because it indicates no error. They think their software, their program works perfect, it's super fine, they can release it, and later this the problems occur. And of course there are different kind of problems, software bugs. You have to read this. There's levels of software bugs. Some are not so critical, some are super critical. Like I said, you have to read this. And the last thing what I want to show you is there are also some kind of software bugs. It's not a real software bug, but more can cause us, can produce errors, which what I'm talking here about is, let's go back to my sort algorithm, and you can see I passed here this node here, for example, not as a const, but this one, this head list link param, is actually this one pointer here, which is creating my linked list. Right, this is the sort algorithm, and I have not passed it as a const. And why I think here could be const very nice, the reason for this is this one, normally you want not to change this one in your sort algorithm, which means let's say I try to make here all kind of things. You can see I use here a lot of pointers, but the other pointers is okay to change because I want to be changed. You can see here I assign a pointer here, I assign a pointer here. I want that this pointer is changing later to this position, this pointer is changing to this position, and you can see this kind of pointers, they should change, they should be not declared as const. But this pointer here, which I'm also using, you can see when I click on it here is highlighted, I want not that they are able to be changed. And you can see, to make sure that this is not a problem, you write normally const in it, which means if you try now to change this pointer here, which you use in your code, would be safe, and your sort function here will be not broken. Because let's say I would go here head, I take here my this one, and I would try now to assign any other value for it. For example, I assign this pointer to it. Let's take this one, copy this one here. You can see this is not possible. When I hover my mouse over it, it says expression must be modifiable, and we learned modifiable means it can't be used const. So with other words, if I have here const, for example, you can see I can change this, but the problem is that was my head pointer, which means now I can't use, now I made here, let's say not a memory leak. Why I made not a memory leak here? The reason for this is a copy. This is a copy, so which means the original pointer to head of this linked list is still here. The problem is I can't use this copy in my code now here, because let's say I have here changed this copy, and let's say I try to use this one again later, and then I would accidentally use, for example, this one here. And that's also considered to be, you can call it bad practice, but it's a potential error case. And that's why this kind of stuff is also can cause bugs, right? And to avoid this, like I said, you need theory. Theory means you need not only this practical knowledge, which we are training, or we are trying to train, you need a lot of theory in the future, if you get better and better, to find this kind of bugs. And this kind of errors and bugs are very difficult, and that's why, like I said at the start, we have to understand what bugs means. And the bad point is, as a starter, we are training only compiler errors. What I mean with that is, like a starter of programming, you are annoyed about compiler errors, But in real, these compiler errors are indicating all time an error, and if you try to fix them, you are training to fix compiler errors and you are learning the syntax, right? This compiler errors means you have a syntax problem, and then you check the syntax and you train this learning the coding syntax. But the bad news is these logical errors, like I said, the software bugs, they are not indicated. And we are not training during this course the software bugs. And that's the problem for the future. Even if you get experienced, to find software bugs without training is hard, really hard, because we are not training it. And the only way to do this one is actually, like I said, you need first of all get a lot of knowledge so that you know exactly what you are doing and why you are doing it and what it means what you do. And the second thing is you need a lot of practice of programming to see what kind of bugs can occur, and that is called experience. Is a little bit hard, but just to be aware that this is the future when you get better and better, and not, like I said at the beginning, the funny videos on YouTube or on TikTok where they show how software developers get crazy about compiler errors. This is not true. Only true for beginners, but for experienced programmers, they are happy actually. For example, I would be happy about a compiler error, but I would be mad about a software bug because software bugs, oh my god. Yeah, that's a hard to trace down things. All right, I hope it was a little bit informative, and like I said, please read this one. I think this gives you a very good overview when you read this Wikipedia page. I will link it in the description below. And then in the next video, we will continue here with my steps. And the second reason fast is that I showed you the software bugs. Like I said before, I create here a prototype, right? So you can see this here. What I try to make is a prototype, which means I try to figure out every step on my own. And when you try to do this, there are several software bugs. Even as a starter, you have also compiler bugs. But like I said, compiler errors, be happy. The compiler is helping you. But software bugs, no. Software bugs are the problem for the future, and we have to train this. And that's why I indicate this one now, that we start to think also about software bugs, because right now we thought more about compiler errors, right? This is more syntax, but we have to really to start aiming for software bugs. And you will see when I continue with my program, there are some software bugs which we have to identify to make it better. And one more note, careful. Software bugs, don't confuse software bugs with optimization code, right? What I mean with that is this code which I create in a prototype is not perfect. That means not it has a software bug. Perfect means, for example, it's not the fastest one. The code is not the best one. Oh, that is more optimization, which means you can make it shorter, you can make it better. But this is the thing which you have also to distinguish, right? Optimization is another thing. Software bug means there is definitely an error, most time a logical error, which causes that the output is not that what it is expected. And then there is this compiler error, which you already should train by now a little bit. So this compiler error means syntax error, which is our best friend normally. But I understand that starter hate this, but in real, compiler errors are our friend. All right, with that said, if you have any question or any comments which you want to write, then you can do it like all time in the comment section. See you in the next video with the next step, which will be our step 11 for our creating this sort linked list. All right, bye, good luck, and like all time, have fun and never give up.